luxury hotel room, soft lights, white sheets, and inside, a secret so dark, it would shock the world. A mother travels to Bali hoping to fix her broken relationship with her daughter. She believes time, distance, and luxury can heal old wounds. But some wounds don't heal. They turn into rage. By morning, that hotel room becomes a crime scene. A woman's body is stuffed into a suitcase. And the people responsible are not strangers. They are family. What could drive a daughter to betray the one person who gave her life? Was it love, control, money, or something far more disturbing? This is not just a story about murder. It's a story about entitlement, manipulation, and a bond twisted beyond repair. Stay with us till the end. Subscribe to Shadow's True Crime here for real, dark, and unforgettable true crime stories. Because some truth are meant to be uncovered in the shadows. The year is 2014. The location, Bali, Indonesia, a place known for beauty, peace, and escape. But behind the luxury resorts and tourist smiles, a brutal crime is about to unfold. The victim is Sheila von Wiese-Mack, a wealthy American woman in her 60s. The accused are not strangers. They are her own daughter, Heather Mack, and Heather's boyfriend, Tommy Schaefer. This case would explode across international media, not just because of how violent it was. It begins with a taxi driver. He notices a heavy suitcase left behind in his trunk. Something feels wrong. Then he sees it, blood leaking from the bag. Police are called. The suitcase is opened. Inside lies the beaten body of a woman. Her face is swollen, her life violently taken. The cause of death, blunt force trauma and suffocation. What was supposed to be a luxury vacation, has now become one of the most disturbing family crimes of the decade. And the question everyone would soon ask was chilling. How did a mother's trip with her daughter end inside a suitcase? At 62 years old, Sheila von Wiese-Mack lived a life most people could only imagine. She was a wealthy Chicago socialite, surrounded by comfort, status, and privilege. Money was never a problem. But behind the luxury, Sheila was known to be strong-willed and controlling. She demanded order. She demanded obedience. Her relationship with her daughter, Heather, was deeply troubled. Friends and family described constant tension. Arguments over money, rules, and independence were common. Sheila tightly controlled Heather's finances. Access to money came with conditions. And for Heather, that control felt suffocating. What looked like care to a mother, felt like a cage to a daughter. Heather Mack was just 18 years old at the time. She grew up surrounded by wealth. But emotionally, her life was unstable. She had been expelled from multiple schools. Authority was a constant source of conflict. Rules felt like punishment. Heather carried a deep sense of rebellion and entitlement. She felt misunderstood, trapped, and powerless under her mother's control. To Heather, her relationship with Tommy Schaefer became an escape. He listened, he supported her anger, and slowly, he became her way out. What began as teenage defiance would soon spiral into something far darker. Tommy positioned himself as her protector and emotional support, reinforcing Heather's belief that she was being controlled and mistreated by her mother. Sheila strongly disapproved of the relationship, seeing Tommy as irresponsible and manipulative. This disapproval only deepened the divide. Financial arguments, emotional pressure, and constant conflict followed. Behind the scenes, Heather was hiding a secret that would push everything to the edge. She was pregnant. She feared that if her mother found out, she would lose her financial support, her inheritance, and any remaining control over her own life. The trip to Bali, Indonesia was planned by Sheila as an attempt to repair her broken relationship with her daughter. She booked a stay at the luxury Bali resort, believing a change of scenery could heal old wounds. But the tension didn't stay behind in Chicago, it traveled with them. Arguments continued behind closed doors. Sheila remained unaware of Heather's pregnancy, while Heather lived in constant fear of exposure. To her, the trip wasn't a vacation, it felt like a ticking clock. And inside that hotel room, pressure, resentment, and desperation were building toward a violent breaking point. On the night of August 12, 2014, a heated argument erupted inside the luxury hotel room at the St. Regis Bali resort. What began as another confrontation quickly escalated when Sheila threatened to cut Heather off financially, removing the control Heather had relied on her entire life. In that moment, the tension turned violent. Inside a room meant for rest and privilege, Sheila von Wiese-Mack was brutally attacked, beaten, and strangled. The contrast was chilling. A violent crime unfolding within one of the world's most exclusive resorts. By the time the argument ended, Sheila was dead, and nothing about the trip could be undone. In the hours that followed, an unthinkable decision was made. Sheila's body was forced into a suitcase, an act that stripped away any remaining dignity. Heather and Tommy attempted to remove the body without drawing attention, placing the suitcase into the trunk of a taxi, but blood began leaking from the bag, and the weight raised suspicion. The taxi driver grew uneasy and alerted hotel staff. Security was called, authorities arrived, and the scene was quickly secured. What was meant to be a clean escape collapsed almost immediately, turning a private crime into an international headline. Within hours of the discovery, Heather Mack and Tommy Schaefer were arrested in Bali. Their initial statements were filled with contradictions, each version changing as investigators pressed for details. Heather's calm, almost emotionless demeanor shocked both police and the public, especially as the reality set in. A daughter was now accused of killing her own mother. News of the arrest spread rapidly across the world, turning a shocking hotel room homicide into an international sensation. Cameras surrounded the couple as the story exploded, and the media frenzy began almost immediately. As the investigation unfolded, the truth became harder to hide. An autopsy confirmed that Sheila von Wiese-Mack died from blunt force trauma and strangulation, ruling out any claims of self-defense. Inside the hotel room, investigators uncovered clear signs of a violent struggle. Witness statements contradicted Heather and Tommy's accounts, while CCTV footage helped reconstruct their movements before and after the murder. With each new detail, lies and inconsistencies surfaced, steadily dismantling their version of events and exposing the crime for what it truly was. The center of this crime was a toxic mix of money, control, and resentment. Heather Mack was financially dependent on her mother, yet deeply angry at the control Sheila held over her life. The secret pregnancy intensified those fears. Heather believed discovery could mean losing her inheritance, her freedom, and any chance of independence. What had once been financial support became leverage, and what felt like protection began to feel like a trap. That dependency, combined with long-standing resentment and a desperate desire to escape, ultimately turned deadly. The trial unfolded inside Indonesia's strict legal system, where penalties are far more severe than in the United States. Prosecutors pursued the death penalty, emphasizing the brutality of the attack and the calculated effort to hide the body. Graphic courtroom testimony detailed the violence that occurred inside the luxury hotel room, shocking observers both inside and outside the courtroom. Public reaction was intense and global, with debates over punishment, privilege, and justice. Throughout the trial, Heather maintained that she acted in self-defense, a claim prosecutors forcefully rejected as the evidence continued to mount against her. In the end, Tommy Schaefer was convicted of murder, while Heather Mack was convicted as his accomplice. Initially, both received 10-year prison sentences, a decision that sparked outrage internationally. Critics questioned the role of privilege and wealth in the perceived leniency of the punishment. Many struggled to reconcile the gravity of the crime with what seemed like a surprisingly light sentence, and the case became a flashpoint in global discussions about justice and accountability. While serving her sentence, Heather gave birth to a child in prison, a stark reminder of the life she had created amidst chaos. The baby was placed under state care, separating mother and child. Public anger grew over what many saw as her continued leniency, and debates over moral responsibility intensified. Eventually, Heather was released early for good behavior, leaving many to question whether justice had truly been served. Upon release, Heather was deported back to the U.S., where the legal consequences of her actions followed her. New charges were filed, including conspiracy and obstruction of justice, reflecting the ongoing complexities of her case. She was rearrested almost immediately, now facing the American justice system and a second chapter in a story that had already shocked the world. The global saga of crime, privilege, and accountability was far from over. Heather Mack eventually pleaded guilty to conspiracy in the United States, facing the consequences she had long avoided. She received a federal prison sentence, and for the first time, the reality of her actions fully caught up with her. Wealth, privilege, and connections no longer offered protection. The crime that began in a luxury Bali hotel had followed her across the globe, and justice was finally being enforced under U.S. law. For Sheila von Wiese-Mack's family, the tragedy left permanent scars. Her life, once full of privilege and comfort, had been reduced to headlines and court testimony. Relationships fractured, leaving Heather's child growing up without a grandmother or both parents. The emotional toll is enduring, and the family continues to grapple with the consequences of one fatal night that destroyed so much. The case also highlights the toxic dynamics of mother-daughter relationships, where control, entitlement, and manipulation can fester. Money was used as a tool for domination, while narcissism and unresolved conflict escalated tensions. This is a story of privilege, manipulation, and psychological warfare that turned deadly when boundaries broke entirely. Across the world, headlines went viral, debate raged over punishment, morality, and accountability. Some sympathized with Heather's youth and upbringing, while others criticized her actions as a stark example of privilege gone wrong. The case even reignited discussions around affluenza, where wealth seems to shield the guilty from full consequences. No amount of wealth could hide the violence and betrayal that unfolded. Freedom for Heather came at the cost of blood, and a luxury hotel became the scene of a chilling crime. The story is a stark reminder: monsters don't always look like monsters. If this story shook you, subscribe to Shadow's True Crime here. Like, comment, and share to support real true crime investigations. Justice may be delayed, but the truth always surfaces.